So I came across this video from Michaela Peterson on Rumble, and the idea she had was to invite two people to talk about the origin of the Israel-Palestine conflict. So she invited David Brog, who is very, very much pro-Israel, and she also invited Norman Finkelstein, who is a bit more open to looking at the situation also from a Palestinian point of view. And I have to say, in and of itself, it's not even that bad of an idea to do, to try to understand where it all came from, where it originated. But while watching this, I came to realize, well, I actually realized this a long time ago, but let's just say, it reinforced the idea in me that we can keep talking about this forever, literally. We can talk about how did it start? Who started it? Why did they start this? Who's to blame? What about October 7th? What about 1948? What about this? What about that? We can keep going forever. And I actually think it's good to sometimes look at certain events for analytical purposes, of course. But it seems like almost everything I see and hear about this conflict is only focusing on the problems, and it's not getting us anywhere. So I believe a much more interesting and much more constructive conversation would be about a solution. Now, I found this article on commondreams.org. It's an article by Jeffrey Sachs, and it's called A Framework for Peace in Israel and Palestine. Now, it is, as he calls it, a framework that can hopefully lead to lasting peace in Israel and Palestine. I've heard him talk about this a few times before, and I think it's great that we can also read about it. I will leave a link in the description so you can check it out for yourself. Now, is this a perfect plan? Well, I think no plan is perfect, especially depending on who you ask at any given moment. But I do believe it's very well thought out, it is balanced, it is fair, and it is very constructive. Now, is it going to be easy to implement? Well, theoretically, yes, but in practice, of course, there are a lot of obstacles to overcome. Still, I wanted to focus some attention on this because, as I mentioned, it seems like every report about Israel and Palestine is about focusing on problems and almost never about what we can do about it. So hopefully this can help shift the focus to thinking more about solutions. Now, according to Jeffrey Sachs, it is absolutely crucial for not only Palestinians, but also for Israel that peace will be achieved. Because, obviously Palestinians want independence, they want sovereignty, they want freedom, basically. But also for Israel, it's very, very important because, they're not doing a very good job in this war. They're starting to lose public opinion and they're getting isolated diplomatically more and more. And this could be a real threat to the existence of Israel as a state. Now, according to Jeffrey Sachs, we cannot leave trying to achieve peace up to direct negotiations between Israel and Palestinians because there are some obstacles that are just too difficult to overcome. So he mentions that some hardliners on both sides always manage to obstruct a peaceful outcome of negotiations. Then there's also the matter of the 700,000 Jewish settlers in the West Bank, and also both Hamas and the Israeli government aren't too keen to compromise, basically. So he says the UN should get involved. This plan should be based on a unanimous backing from the UN Security Council and also an overwhelming majority of the UN General Assembly. Now, what Jeffrey Sachs is proposing is basically a two-state solution, which is already supported by an overwhelming majority of the UN member states, including all of Israel's Arab neighbors. Now, Jeffrey Sachs also refers to a declaration in favor of a two-state solution, which was the outcome of an Arab-Islamic summit that took place in Riyadh on November 11th, which states that a sovereign Palestinian state should be established on the Palestinian territories occupied by Israel since June 4th, 1967. And this includes Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which should be the capital of that Palestinian state. Now, furthermore, Jeffrey Sachs says that peace should be enforced by a UN peacekeeping force. He also says that a UN Security Council resolution should commit the UN and neighboring states to help Israel and Palestine to establish mutual security, a demilitarization of militia forces in the region, and a move to Palestinian statehood. And then he goes on to mention 8 points that should also be included in that resolution. Let me read them to you quickly. So, an immediate release of all hostages, ceasefire by all parties, and flow of humanitarian aid under UN supervision. A peacekeeping force drawn from Arab nations and operating under the mandate of the UN Security Council to assume control of Gaza security for a period of 5 years. The immediate disarmament and demobilization of Hamas and other militias by the peacekeeping forces as part of the peace. The UN supervision of civilian administration of Gaza until the functions are transferred to the State of Palestine by end 2025. The establishment of Palestine as a UN member state with capital in East Jerusalem and control over the Islamic holy sites no later than end 2025. Diplomatic relations established between Israel and all Arab League states in conjunction with UN membership and the State of Palestine. A UN Reconstruction and Sustainable Development Fund for Palestine to finance a long-term sustainable development program designed by Palestinian authorities and UN representatives. A regional economic development strategy involving Israel, Palestine, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in the region. Now again, I will leave a link in the description to this article so you can take a look for yourself. And again, hopefully for some, at least it will cause some kind of shift from problem thinking and polarization and blaming to thinking more in terms of solutions.